much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think you have heard from the previous speakers today that the promise of ASEAN is very attractive, both from other countries, investors, and business community at large. But also it is safe to say that a lot of the things that are happening globally, the macro condition will have profound impact on ASEAN going forward. So today, I think we will spend some time to discuss how these global challenges are shaping the future of ASEAN, particularly how they impact the value chains that are affecting ASEAN growth going forward. So I'm going to dive right in by sharing a few facts to put the discussion in perspective. If you look at the growth in China over the last 2 decades, it has made China actually a major economic bloc globally. So given the centrality of ASEAN, we are actually now privileged to be the economic partner for 3 of the world's largest economic blocs: US, Europe, and China. Of course, the recession in the West and the recent slowdown in the Chinese economic growth have some impact on ASEAN as well. As you see on some of these numbers, the imports of China from ASEAN has actually declined in the recent years. But the consensus remains that people believe that ASEAN will remain attractive going forward. If I take some of the stats around trade as an example, the trade between ASEAN and the West, or ASEAN and China, are expected to grow at a healthy rate, much higher than of the global average growth for trade globally. And what is even more interesting, that intra-ASEAN opportunity also is expected to increase, contributing to double the growth of that of global average. Of course, all this growth are deaggregated. If you look at the different sectors, you will see much faster growth in the new economies. We talked a lot earlier about nickel and other precious metal, which, if you look at these numbers, projection of trade with China, it's expected to take a center stage, given also Chinese plan to be the #1 EV producer globally. So with this number aside, Fred, I guess the first question to you is, how do you make sense of this global climate, and what do you think will be the role of ASEAN going forward?
I think good and exciting time. As you know, ASEAN has always found its place in the global supply chain ecosystems. Past in the 80s and 90s, ASEAN was a production hub to the West before China took over. Present to 2000, China's rise have led to ASEAN largest trade partners, representing close to 20% of the all trades. Looking in the future, multipolar world set to stay. Trade flows changing rapidly, driven primarily by 2 factors, as some ministers have highlighted. First, they've been calling decoupling or de-risking due to globalization or the great power competition between the Western Bloc and China. Second, build supply chain resilience. From just in time to just in case, post-COVID pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war that caused a disruption in supply chain. Actually, we already started to see a shift in supply chain to China +1 across the ASEAN economies and countries, with Vietnam being the main beneficiary today.
So I think you have seen some of the shift. What do you think ASEAN can do, I guess, to truly realize its potential, right? To really accelerate the fact that it's taking the space and the role to play a greater good for the global economy.
I think ASEAN have done well. To forge ahead, ASEAN is going to continue to ensure political stability and united ASEAN as an economic bloc amid the geopolitical tensions. Continue its investment policy in a friendly way and maintain a good infrastructure to attract FDIs. I think some of the minister and ASEAN secretary highlighted how to harmonize economic policies for implementation, especially in the digital economy. Trade standards, as well as consumer protection, among others. I think it's important to set clear policies, pathways, and goals in the development of digital and the green economies, and to capture the shift in the supply chain into this region. However, ASEAN needs to move fast, with India emerging as a competitor for the FDIs.
Great. I do agree that greater harmonization, I think, will do a lot of good for the region overall. I know we also have a lot of investors coming out of China right now. It's very hard to talk about ASEAN future growth without China.
Yep.
How do you make sense of the recent slowdown in China, its outlook, and what impact it will play on ASEAN overall?
Understand China is facing some challenges, from both internal and external forces. I do believe China have the policy tools to address the problems in the medium to long term. Don't forget, China is now the world's second largest economy with GDP of 18 trillion US dollar. Even at a slower projected growth rate, let's say 4%, it translates to 700 billion US dollar annual GDP growth. That is about 2x of what the American projected growth of 2% on the GDP. Despite a slowdown, there's still tremendous opportunity for ASEAN-China trade corridor. We estimated of over 900 billion US dollar today. So tremendous opportunities.
Are you seeing this inflow of China into ASEAN from your experience with your clients today?
We definitely see continued investments, FDI into Indonesia, into Thailand, into Malaysia. EV sector has been one of the key movers in there. The downstream of nickel supply, as you say, have been flowing into China as well. I think similarly, coal, 45% of Indonesian coal continue to go to China markets. So I think the trade flows continue to be there. I think this region rich in commodities will continue to benefit as China continue to industrialize. And the digital economy also provide new avenues, for a lot of ASEAN companies need not physically present in China to sell their product online, to tap the rising consumer market in China. So I continue to be very bullish, with the new engine for ASEAN, other than the old traditional engine, the West for ASEAN.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you're also seeing the inclusive growth with MSME at play as well. I guess let's shift gear a little bit around, we talk a lot about ASEAN and other economic blocs, but what about intra-ASEAN opportunity, right? I think as you see, we are actually quite bullish on the intra-ASEAN trade opportunity as an example. As your tagline, one bank for ASEAN,
yep,
do you believe in this opportunity as well? And are you seeing the movement, I guess, intra-ASEAN?
First, thank you for making the marketing pitch for UOB. A short answer is yes. Political stability and growing economies in spite of slower global economies. ASEAN FDI and trade are often overlooked. ASEAN remains a top recipient of FDI, as Minister highlighted. It's over 200 billion US dollar last year. And the intra-ASEAN trade, again highlighted by my CEO, is over 800 billion US dollars. So these are all driven by large growing consumer demand in ASEAN. ASEAN is home to 670 million people with young demographic and rising middle income class. I think the shift in global supply chain is benefiting ASEAN with its cost competitiveness and the political neutral position amid the geopolitical tensions, and region rich with natural resources and friendly investment policy with relatively good infrastructure.
What would be some of the examples, I guess, you are seeing as well, right, in terms of intra-ASEAN opportunity that you have observed coming up in the region? that people should be aware of?
I think the digital economy clearly have opened up borders. We see a lot of cross-border trade activities flowing on the e-commerce platform. The other thing I think the EV industry could be a catalyst to shift combustion car to EV car towards meeting our net zero environment as well. Again, the development on the downstream, some industry that we can learn from Indonesia, how to create the value chain, okay, and to create value. Nickel is one example. I think there are many other sectors can do similar thing, including the palm oil, okay. So we continue to see a lot of potential for this region to further enhance and create new growth opportunities.
Great. Yeah. So great to see the optimism, right, on the potential of ASEAN. I'm going to shift gear a little bit, right? I think as we are thinking about future growth as well, it is equally important to balance, the wealth creation within the region with a responsibility that goes along with this growth. And of course, one of the areas that has been widely talked about is the area of sustainability. If you look at the commitments that has been made by ASEAN countries and its major trading partner, everybody has committed to net zero by 2050 or 2060. And I think this level of commitment actually gives rise to very huge projection. I think if you look at the impact of the green economy on the region, we're talking about $5.3 trillion of GDP growth per annum by 2050 that is in this space. We're talking about a cumulative of $6.7 trillion of investment into the green space over the next 30 years. And also from job creation perspective, 66 million jobs will be created in this space by 2050. I mean, all of these are very lofty projection, Fred. I guess my question to you is this a hype or is it reality? Do you see companies actually embracing this movement?
To answer the question short, both. I think it is very large investment would be required to move to low carbon and net zero. The market has been estimated over $100 trillion over the coming decades to transition towards a net zero environment. We do see clients in some sectors moving quickly when tech and regulation are conducive, i.e. in the green building, in the energy efficient data centers, renewable energy like solar, EV, as you see the value chain. We also see clients struggling when tech and regulation are not aligned, i.e. in the oil and gas sector, circular economy, and even carbon credits. We also see, clients are responding to global value chain requirements, especially from developed countries. European has started with carbon border tax and sustainability requirement in the supply chain RFPs. Medium long-term commercial opportunity is therefore huge, as sectorial value chain realign to decarbonize and critical need to protect and support SME across value chain to become ready for net zero.
Yeah. I think you talk about sectoral view as well. Do you see, acceleration of adoption of the green economy to be faster in some industries? Where do you see, I guess, the prospect for growth, right, across sectors and segments of the economy?
Yeah. I think the biggest mover is going to be probably in this region, power, renewable energy probably is one. It's not an easy one, as I say. I think the automobiles industry is another big one. I think given the number of cars on the roads. And of course, buildings, probably one of the easier to comply with, okay, to have some reduction in carbon emissions coming out of buildings. So yes, there are many sectors we're seeing of potential. There are sectors which are also encounter some challenges like agriculture, for instance. Right? The data ability measurement benchmark are still evolving. So I think there's some low-hanging fruits. I think yet there are other sectors which might take a bit longer time. But nonetheless, is coming mainstream. I think, the world have to start focusing on that. I think COP27, 28 will probably cement some of the more structured framework for country for adoption.
Yeah. Yep. I think if this concept is becoming more mainstream and the fact that more companies are willing to embrace this concept, what do you see as the biggest challenge, I guess, and impediment to accelerate the transition, right, towards the green economy?
I mean, generally our clients can access financing, but often we find they're struggling knowing how to invest. Yeah. The uncertainty may come from lack of common standards today, sometimes misaligned policy expectations, or even technologies or new technologies. Government obviously are attempting to bring clarity with national sectoral development plans and work in progress right now. Yeah. Plus, SME in particular struggle with data, reporting. Yeah. Various government, again, efforts are being to build national level reporting platform to support its progress, i.e. Singapore is announcing or having a consultation with respect to that disclosure framework.
Yeah. So I think there are some support that the government can give, right, in terms of infrastructure. But I think if we go back to the private sector, financial services sector in particular, how can financial services sector, I guess, help companies navigate this transition?
I mean, we alone cannot do it. It's going to be really, a joint partnership between us as a catalyst, the private sectors, and the government. It is everybody's business, not just the banking business. Okay, so it's everybody's responsibility to make sure we see through a low carbon emission and net zero, achievements. Yeah, today, a bit of marketing, UOB in it have set up dedicated team to assist our client to navigate, towards a low carbon emission, either financing or projects or transitioning.
Great. Yeah. Good to hear that. Maybe I switch a bit. I think given this is, as mentioned earlier, the first event in Indonesia. So, we can't talk about the growth of ASEAN without Indonesia as an economic powerhouse, right? So I think, again, some data to show, right? I think Indonesia is structurally advantaged to continue to its growth trajectory that is really fueling the growth of ASEAN overall, be it from a demographic standpoint when it remains the largest population in the region, and many are now entering productive age as well. You see the rise of digital economy in the country with 40% of unicorns in the region actually originating from Indonesia. It is also a country that is blessed with resources, especially those that are related to the future economy as well. And probably less known, also amazing sustainability potential, contributing to 36% of actually the world's tropical peatlands today. So however you look at it, very advantaged starting point. And I think as the minister has shared earlier as well, the country is also opening up new value chains and new economies to drive future growth, be it in the renewables and electric vehicle sector, the digital economy as a whole, or even in the nature-based solution and carbon market. It can play a meaningful role in developing these new economies for the region. I guess, Fred, the hype on Indonesia is not new, right? It's been there for many, many years. But to put it in perspective, how actually are you seeing companies who are successful in embracing this opportunity go about doing so?
Okay. I've kind of picked a few points my minister was talking about just now, and how you highlighted the opportunity and progress made by Indonesia. I think first I will summarize, Indonesia has done well in providing a very stable government and right economic policies. As you highlighted, Indonesia is also entering a golden period of growth with its large young population, digital savvy, rich natural resources downstream, rising middle income class. So I think companies need to consider how they can tap these opportunities in the digital and green economies, value-added downstream commodity industries, investment in infrastructure, transportation, and logistics.
Yep. I think if you give an example from your experience as well, right? What are some of the areas, I guess, like for a foreign players interested into the Indonesian market need to be wary of, right? And watch out for? What is that recipe for success, right?
I think if you look at the nickel industry, it's probably a good illustration of a clear policy as to Indonesia, how to create value added to industry. And also we see foreign investors who came in to participate in their opportunity and bring a new markets to Indonesia, have entered into joint venture, to make sure they're win-win in all this development. As Minister said, the potential of nickel industry alone, it created from few billion to potentially 20, 30 billion value to the industry, to the economy. So I think if we can replicate in the bauxite and others industries, I think the catalyst for Indonesia to further create employment in middle income class or getting out the middle income class trap, I think is tremendous, right? So I always say stable government, clear policy direction, we will see investors coming in to participate in the growth.
Great to hear. We also, of course, have some of the public sector officials here, right? If you, probably share your objective advice, what could Indonesia do more, right, to fully realize its potential and to attract even larger set of investors into the country?
Yeah. I think as a keynote speaker and a few ministers and, it's been illustrating stable government with right policy direction, not just Indonesia, across ASEAN. Stability, ASEAN as economic bloc is very critical. I think create value added in rich natural resources, i.e. nickel industry, even forests, can turn to carbon credits, palm oil, you can turn into biomass fuel for transition energy. So you can name a host of these opportunities, out there. Well, natural resources, on one hand, do cause a lot of problem because they are not carbon friendly, but they create opportunity for investments, okay, to transition those industries to a greener industries and to seize the world opportunities that people start shifting to net zero environment. Again, friendly investment policies and continue at a good infrastructure, main ingredient to attract FDIs. Hopefully that we can do it quick and faster ahead of India becoming a new competitors for FDIs. I think the continued digital innovation and adoptions, I think is important. And lastly, sustainable pathways to meet net zero goals. To clear, in terms of timeline, milestones for achievement. I think there will be few of those things, I think important to further realize the full potential of Indonesia. In summary, I'm actually optimistic about Indonesia. I compliment the government for a very stable political environment the last 10 years and right policy directions to provide growth amid a very challenging external forces. To us at UOB, Indonesia is an important footprint of our ASEAN strategy, and to be one bank for ASEAN, as my CEO in his keynote speech, and therefore important we remain committed to Indonesia. Thank you.
It's really great to hear that commitment. Maybe one more final question, Fred, if I may. We're entering political year in Indonesia, right? And you mentioned that the government has done a good job in the last 9 to 10 years to create a conducive environment. What would be, I guess, from, in short, some of the policies and direction of the country that you wish to see it continues, right, to make it, attractive market for investors at large?
What I saw, again, I'm not a political analyst, but what we saw, what we like is that, as I said, policy direction very clear. Their ambition set for 2045, for Indonesia become a developed country an ambition to be probably one of the top 5 world largest GDP economy. So I just hope, whoever the future leaders can sustain a consistent policy to achieve those vision and goals.
Noted.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we are at time. So thank you so much, Fred, for sharing your great insights. If I were to summarize just very few key takeaway points for our conversation today, I think number one, ASEAN is well-placed to capture tremendous opportunity going forward, especially as it maintain its centrality and being able to partner with 3 major economic blocs globally, right? Be it US, Europe, or China. I think secondly, sustainability movement is happening, and it will rapidly accelerate the growth, right? And you can truly embrace this, and it can be as big as the next industrial revolution that will create new future growth engine for the region. And I think finally, Indonesia's role in the ASEAN growth story remains pivotal and central, and that the outlook for Indonesia, as Fred pointed out, is brightly optimistic, and with that, will remain the center for ASEAN growth story. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and hope we can continue this conversation forward in the coming years, Fred.
Thank you, Ernest.